Breaking news. At 04:18 UTC this morning, a data packet from the Atacama Large Millimeter Array in northern Chile triggered an automated priority alert across 3 continents. Moments later, mirrored confirmations arrived from the European Space Network in Symmetrical, Spain, and a rapid response imaging sequence initiated by the James Webb Space Telescope from its position at L2. What they revealed was not supposed to be possible. Today, the impossible just happened. An interstellar object, cataloged as 3I Atlas, has produced imagery and measurements that defy every natural model we have used for comets, asteroids, or rogue planetary debris. High-resolution frames captured within a 37-minute window show repeating geometric features, sharp edges, and symmetrical voids where none should exist. This changes everything we thought we knew. If you want more breaking cosmic updates like this, calm, factual, and backed by real data, hit like, subscribe, and stay with us, because what we're about to walk through may be the most consequential astronomical discovery of our lifetime. The credibility of this moment matters. Claims like this do not emerge from a single telescope, a single researcher, or a single nation. Within minutes of the initial alert, NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office confirmed receipt of the data stream. The European Space Agency cross-referenced the photometry with archived Hubble observations taken weeks earlier. At Harvard, Caltech, and the Max Planck Institute, independent teams halted ongoing simulations to rerun orbital models using the updated parameters. The observations came from everywhere at once. Radio spectra from the Atacama Array in Chile, infrared imaging from JWST, optical follow-ups from Mauna Kea in Hawaii, Doppler tracking from the Deep Space Network in Goldstone, California, and Canberra, Australia. When institutions separated by oceans and political boundaries all pause to look at the same object, it is because something has crossed a threshold from curiosity to concern. 3I Atlas was first detected as a fast-moving interstellar visitor entering the solar system on a hyperbolic trajectory with an inbound velocity of approximately 32 kilometers per second relative to the Sun. That alone was unusual, but not unprecedented. What followed was 48 hours before today's alert, routine monitoring flagged a subtle deviation in its acceleration profile. The change was small, only 0.09 millimeters per second squared, but it persisted. 11 hours later, thermal readings from mid-infrared bands showed localized temperature plateaus at 420 Kelvin surrounded by regions nearly 200 Kelvin cooler. Natural outgassing could not explain the sharp thermal boundaries. Then, 7 hours before the alert, spectroscopic analysis detected something stranger still: a periodic suppression of expected emission lines. Water, carbon monoxide, and cyanogen signatures flickered in and out at exact 11.3-minute intervals. Comets do not pulse. They sublimate chaotically, responding to solar radiation, not clocks. 3 hours later, the first images arrived. I remember staring at the raw feed as it rendered line by line. Not enhanced, not color-corrected, just photons converted to pixels. What appeared was not a smooth, tumbling body shedding gas and dust. It was a structure, faceted, layered, with repeating triangular and hexagonal geometries etched across a surface spanning nearly 800 meters. At first, the team assumed an artifact, compression error, sensor ghosting. But when the same geometry appeared in data from a completely different instrument, using a different wavelength and different optics, denial was no longer an option. At 02:41 UTC, NASA authorized a Level 2 anomaly briefing. By 0310, ESA mirrored the classification. The words non-random morphology appeared in internal notes. That phrase is used sparingly. It means the structure exhibits order beyond statistical chance. As the hours unfolded, the timeline grew darker. 29 hours before the initial alert, 3I Atlas executed a course adjustment of approximately 0.004 degrees. The maneuver altered its perihelion distance by 0.017 AU. That change required energy. Calculations showed no accompanying mass loss sufficient to generate the thrust via outgassing, no debris cloud, no ion tail flare, just motion. Clean, silent, controlled. At 14 hours before the alert, the object's rotation rate stabilized. Previously chaotic tumbling gave way to a fixed axial orientation, aligned within 0.2 degrees of the ecliptic plane. Natural bodies damp rotation over millions of years, not hours. Then came the photographs. High-resolution frames revealed cavities arranged in radial symmetry, not impacts, not erosion, uniform spacing, consistent depth. Computational edge detection highlighted straight lines extending for tens of meters, lines that remained straight across varying illumination angles. No known law of physics predicts straight lines in eroding interstellar debris. As the scientific community mobilized, two camps formed almost immediately. Dr. Elena Markovich of Caltech led the mainstream interpretation. Her team proposed that 3I Atlas could be a fragment of an exoplanetary crust fractured under extreme tidal stress during a stellar flyby long before entering our system. Exotic chemistry, unusual geometry, rare but natural. Opposing her was a quieter, more controversial line of thought articulated by researchers like Dr. Samuel Kwan at Harvard and Dr. Aisha Rahman at the Max Planck Institute. Their models struggled to reproduce the observed symmetry under any known natural process. When simulations incorporated rotational damping, thermal gradients, and interstellar erosion, the geometry dissolved. Nature refused to cooperate. The debate intensified when gravitational modeling produced an uncomfortable result. Mass estimates based on luminosity and acceleration did not match. 3I Atlas behaved as though it had far less mass than its size suggested, nearly 99% less. Either our understanding of its composition was catastrophically wrong, or most of its mass was no longer there. At 0612 UTC, a second wave of anomalies arrived. Radio telescopes monitoring background noise detected a narrow-band emission centered at 1.42 GHz, the hydrogen line. That frequency is ubiquitous in astronomy, but this signal was modulated, not randomly, in bursts lasting exactly 73 seconds, separated by intervals that followed a prime number sequence, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. This was no longer random, it was responding. The pulses were weak, barely above noise, but consistent across receivers in Chile, South Africa, and Western Australia. Interference was ruled out. The signal tracked the object's position precisely. When 3I Atlas dipped behind the Sun from Earth's perspective, the signal vanished. When it reemerged, so did the pulses. Inside control rooms, conversations stopped. Encrypted channels lit up between space agencies. Data sharing agreements were invoked that had not been used since the Cold War. Governments were briefed quietly. No press conferences, no public statements. Silence instead, and speed. On Earth, effects were subtle but real. A cluster of low Earth orbit satellites reported transient orientation errors within a 12-minute window matching the pulse cycle. Ground-based magnetometers in northern Canada recorded fluctuations of 0.6 nanoteslas, small but synchronized. Amateur radio operators noticed unexplained fades. Migratory tracking stations in Eastern Europe reported sudden deviations in bird flight paths. None of these effects were dangerous, but together they formed a pattern.
As the data accumulated, the philosophical weight became unavoidable. If 3i Atlas is artificial, it does not behave like our machines. There are no thruster plumes, no waste heat signatures we recognize. The structure appears optimized for minimal interaction, stealth through physics rather than concealment. I found myself thinking not of invasion, but of observation. Perhaps we are not witnessing the end, but an invitation, or a survey, a probe that has crossed interstellar space for reasons we cannot name, using principles we do not yet understand. At 18 hours after the alert, one final revelation emerged. A fragment, previously tracked and assumed to be debris, vanished. Not dimmed, not drifted away, it disappeared from optical, infrared, and radio sensors simultaneously. No energy spike, no gravitational ripple. It was simply gone. The remaining body adjusted orientation by a fraction of a degree. Controlled, precise. We are left now with questions more powerful than answers. What does it mean when the universe sends us something that looks back? When geometry replaces chaos? When motion follows intention? 3i Atlas continues its silent passage through our solar system. Instruments remain locked on, models update hourly, and somewhere in data centers and observatories around the world, scientists wait for the next pulse. Subscribe to follow the next update, because this story isn't over. The next anomaly may not be silent.